Who are the five popes in hell? Well, technically, five popes in hell, according to the Italian poet Dante Alighieri. Before we get into the five popes that Dante placed in hell, you need to understand that Dante wrote what's called the Divine Comedy. It's a three-part trilogy beginning with hell, called the Inferno, part two, Purgatory, and part three, Paradise. And pretty much for the Inferno, if Dante doesn't like you, if you're an enemy of his, he's going to place you in hell. Dante's Inferno is Bible fan fiction. It's based on biblical themes, but it's not necessarily dogma or infallible. And what's interesting is Dante has in hell what we might call the Pope tube. It's a tube in hell, and God just keeps placing sinful popes in there, head to feet, down the tube. And so today we're going to look at the five popes that are in hell. But before we do, you need to know something about Catholicism.
I wouldn't get too into that Catholic Church with all the sitting and standing and kneeling. It's like Simon Says without a winner.
Mom, that's blasphemy.
I'll say a rosary for you.
Don't you touch bead one. Homer, maybe we should be concerned. Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No birth control, no meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
And would you like to say grace?
Yes, in nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
First off, what is a pope? According to the Catholic Church, the pope, or in Latin and Greek, the papa, is the successor of St. Peter. As you know, Jesus Christ had 12 apostles, and chief among those apostles was a man named Simon. And in Matthew chapter 16, Jesus Christ changed his name from Simon to Kepha in Aramaic, or in Greek, Petros, Peter, rock. And he says, on this rock I will build my church. And he gave him the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And so from the earliest days, the Catholic Church has considered the successors of St. Peter, who are the bishops of Rome, to be Peter on earth. That is what a pope is. But a pope is not sinless. A pope is only the infallible teacher when it comes to faith and morals. And so Dante Alighieri takes five of these popes and places them in hell. So let's see who those popes are and why Dante damned them. By the way, I have a whole video here on YouTube on the 9 layers of hell. If you really want to go deep into hell, you can check that out here on YouTube, the 9 circles of hell. The first pope that Dante Alighieri places into hell,
Going down.
Pope Anastasia II. He was pope from 496 to 498. He's in Canto 11, and he's in the 6th circle of hell for heresy. Heresy is believing willfully the wrong thing. And Pope Anastasius was soft on the Acacian schism, which was a problem in the early church with the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople and the Patriarch of Constantinople favoring the heresy of the Monophysites. The Monophysites said that Christ was a divine person with a divine nature, but that his human nature was absorbed or absconded. So the idea was that Christ was fully divine, but not truly human. Now, Pope Anastasius was rumored to have given communion to Photinus of Thessalonica, an associate of Acacius, and also he was said to accept the baptisms of Acacius. So Dante places Pope Anastasius in the 6th circle of hell, and he says, I guard Pope Anastasius, he whom Photinus drew from the straight path. Photinus being one of the leaders of the Acacian heresy. However, modern Dante scholars have suggested that maybe this was a mistake, and instead, Dante is referring to the emperor Anastasius of the same name. But probably he is referring to Pope Anastasius. Why? Because in the first 500 years, the first 50 popes, only 2 popes are not canonized as saint, and one of them is Liberius, and the other is Pope Anastasius. The second pope placed in hell by Dante is Pope Nicholas III. He was pope from 1277 to 1280, and he is lampooned by Dante because of his nepotism. Nepotism is literally favoring your nephew. In fact, we get the word nephew from this root word, nepos. He was born into the powerful Orsini family in Rome, and Giovanni Gaetano was appointed head of the Inquisition before being elected pope, and he took the name Nicholas in 1277. Incidentally, his father was a personal friend of St. Francis of Assisi. Pope Nicholas expanded papal influence by reorganizing parts of Italy and also issuing a compromise between the Franciscans, who were the radical spiritualists, and the more moderate Franciscans. And he was known for his high morals and his care for the poor. So why did Dante Alighieri throw him into hell? Well, he has him in hell because he was guilty of favoring the little cubs in Italian. What does that mean? Well, his last name, Orsini, means bears. So he's favoring the cubs, his nephews, his family members, by using the papacy to benefit those who belong to his inner family. He filled the position of 3 new cardinals with his own relatives and lifted other relatives to high posts in the Catholic Church. He died in 1280 and was born in St. Peter's in Rome. The third pope placed in hell by Dante is Pope Celestine V. He was pope for only 5 months in the year 1294. He appears in the Inferno, Canto 3. And here it says, I saw and recognized the shade of him who due to cowardice made the great refusal. This part of hell is for the cowardly fence sitters.
I haven't any courage at all. I even scare myself.
People who do nothing when it's time to take action for the honor of the state or the honor of the church. Now, Pope Celestine is not named, and it's interesting because of all the popes placed in hell by Dante, Pope Celestine is actually a canonized saint by the Catholic Church. So Dante says he's in hell. The Catholic Church says he's in heaven. He was pope for only 5 months. Why is that? He was, before Pope Benedict XVI, one of the very few popes who resigned the papacy. He left the papacy after 5 months. And this is why Dante calls him the coward who made the great refusal. Why is Dante so upset about this? Pope Celestine resigned the papacy, and after him, that allowed the election of Pope Boniface VIII, who we'll get to next. Pope Boniface VIII is the arch nemesis of Dante. Dante hates Pope Boniface VIII more than any pope, perhaps more than anyone in hell. He really hates Pope Boniface VIII. So by the very fact that Pope Celestine resigned and made way for his enemy, Pope Boniface VIII, to come into power, just for that, Dante places Pope Celestine into the fires of hell. Now, some people say maybe Dante is referring here to Pontius Pilate, but most Dante scholars say no, he's referring to Pope Celestine V, who resigned the papacy after 5 months and gave way to... Before we get to this wicked pope, according to Dante, we've now covered the first 3 of 5 popes in hell. And if you're learning something and you like this, please hit the like button. Please subscribe and join over 1 million people who watch the Dr. Taylor Marshall podcast on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Rumble. I appreciate all of you, the subscribers who follow this channel and who like it, share it, and promote it. Thank you. Also, this video is brought to you by the New St. Thomas Institute, NSTI. If you're interested in going deeper into Christian studies, Catholic studies, Old Testament, New Testament, philosophy, theology, then the New St. Thomas Institute is for you. We have hundreds, thousands of students who are taking online courses with me. And in particular, if you like today's topic, you would love our course, and you can earn your certificate in medieval history and medieval theology. So go to nsti.com, nsti.com, and if you sign up today, you will get all 10 courses. So check it out, nsti.com, and become a student at the New St. Thomas Institute. All right, we've had all this buildup on Pope Boniface VIII. He is the fourth pope placed into hell. And he was the pope from 1294 to 1303. He's a contemporary of Dante. He is the pope who, in a way, led to the persecution of Dante in his own personal life. By the way, Dante is known for writing the Divine Comedy. Everybody knows that's Dante's book. But Dante wrote another book that a lot of people don't know about, and it's called On Monarchy. And it is Dante's treatise disputing Pope Boniface VIII's claim to have papal supremacy both over the political realm and the church realm. So Dante hates Boniface so much, he wrote a book against him. And then in his other book, The Divine Comedy, he places him in hell. Boniface VIII was born Benedetto Caetani, a talented and ambitious scholar of canon law who rose quickly through the ranks of the church and was elected pope as Boniface XVIII after the resignation of Pope Celestine V, who we just covered. There were rumors that Pope Boniface VIII had intimidated Pope Celestine into abdicating so that he himself could become pope. Now, Pope Boniface's pontificate was marked by an expansion of church power. And he was the pope who claimed not only to be the spiritual head of the church on earth, but also the temporal head over all kings on earth. He held to the two-sword theory, that he held the temporal sword and the spiritual sword. Dante, however, held firmly that the pope and the emperor should be co-equals in a balance of power. Obviously, the pope disagreed. So Boniface VIII placed the entire city of Florence under an interdict. That's kind of like excommunicating an entire city. And he invited Charles, Count of Valois, to enter Italy in 1300 and end the feud of the black and white Guelphs. The poet, Dante Alighieri, being one of the white Guelphs. Boniface's ambitions directly affected Dante when the Pope invited Count Charles to intervene in the affairs of Florence, and this eventually led to the exile of Dante. So Dante sought to settle the score, and he wrote the Inferno, and he placed Boniface in the level of fraud and of the simoniacs. The sin of simony, as I covered in my video on Dante and the 9 levels of hell, the sin of simony is the sin of buying and selling church offices or sacred things. So if I sold you the relic of a saint, or if I said, hey, you can be the Archbishop of Florence if you pay me this much money, that is the sin of simony, and that is the sin that Dante accused Boniface of and placed him into the underground inferno tube where God stuffs popes head to foot, head to foot, head to foot. The 5th pope placed into hell by Dante is Pope Clement V. He was pope from 1305 to 1314. Pope Nicholas III, the Simonist pope, mistakes Dante for Boniface VIII. And then he realized, oh, that's not Boniface VIII. It's another Simonist pope who is even worse than Boniface VIII in his deeds, and who will stuff Nicholas and then Boniface and then Clement down into this pope hole inside of hell. Prior to becoming pope, Pope Clement V was chaplain to Pope Boniface VIII. So in a way, Pope Clement V is Boniface VIII 2.0. When he was made pope, Clement V immediately made 9 of the cardinals from Frenchmen and began to favor and obey the King of France. So Clement V becomes a puppet pope of the Kingdom of France. He is called the lawless shepherd of the West, and Dante compares him to Jason, who in 2 Maccabees bribed the king in order to become the high priest, an ancient example of the sin of simony. And then Pope Clement moved the seat of his pontificate from Rome, where the papacy is supposed to be by divine law, and moves it to Avignon in southern France. Now, Dante doesn't know this because he dies before this happens, but because of this move of Pope Clement from Rome to France, that sets up a pattern of the popes living in France. And this sets up the Babylonian captivity of the church in France, where the papacy is basically just a puppet under the king of France. And then it eventually leads to there being claimants to the papal throne, not just two, but sometimes three men claiming to be pope, because you have one claiming to be pope in Rome, one claiming to be pope in France. It's a huge mess, and we gotta have to admit here that Dante was right. Pope Clement V messed up big time. If you learned a lot from this one, please check out this video where I take you through the 9 levels of hell and I explain to you all the mortal sins that get you into those 9 levels of hell according to Dante. I also have this video of the 4 regions of hell according to St. Thomas Aquinas. It's a bit more Catholic and definitely Orthodox. So pick one of these videos and continue your learning, and don't forget to like and subscribe. God bless.